place for much longer. I'll be vacating soon. Enough with that. So today we're going to tackle the topic woke, or rather wokeism. And this is a term that has been garnering, what do you call this name? Like like in a gain, let's say momentum in a way, and it's gaining popularity as time goes by. And it's a controversial name. Let's say not even a name. It's a controversial concept in itself, and so it's a nice topic today we're going to have to talk about. So here, in this discussion today, what we're going to do is that we'll have first the introduction of Wokeism, and then
Etsy,
I will
you can
list the subtopics,
excuse,
which yes,
you can list that because we have
yes,
Ian on YouTube right now.
okay. Okay. So our audience on the YouTube platform, you're welcome. My name is Papsi, and I'm going to be the moderator of today's discussion on wokeism. So wokeism, one that has been gaining momentum and popularity because I was checking in 2010 to 2024 as like the graph has been going up and up and up. If you get what I'm saying. So yeah, let's say like it's like
Is it my internet issue
uh,
or
um,
you are breaking?
Yeah,
how do I
Papsi,
put it?
you're breaking.
It's so worrying. Anyway, so what I'll do, I will introduce the concept itself, and then I will list the subtopics and then the subchat in Zoom that we are using, so that everyone can see what you're talking about. So, well, what about now? Hello.
Yes, now we can hear you. Now we can hear you.
Okay. So as I was saying, I will introduce the topic, and I will give the definition and the origins of the concept, and then after that I will list the subtopics, of which definition and origin of Wokeism is part of the subtopic, but I'll have to tackle that one for you, and then the rest of you will I'll be giving you a chance to deal with that, not to deal, to discuss the other subtopics. So if I take the subtopic number one, we'll have 6 more, on which I will list them right after I've done the subtopic number one. So are we together up to that extreme end? If we just get a yes. Hello.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay. Good. So what is wokeism? Wokeism, or rather, let's say wokeism is a word that is derived is
Papsi, you're breaking again. You're breaking again. Papsi, I don't know if you're speaking, but we can't hear you. Hello, Papsi. Maybe you need to adjust your audio. We can't hear you. We can't hear you, Papsi.
We can decide just to come up with the definition of that one as we wait for parts to prepare his. So people can raise their hand to give the definition. As we wait here, we can start with the Morioki.
Trying to make it aware.
Percy, I think you are breaking.
Mm.
Can you try to rectify your gadget, or it's okay now?
Okay, let me. I'm using a Wi-Fi, so let me try to use the bundles
You are
from
okay right
my
now.
phone.
Right now, you are okay. You can proceed.
Okay. So if I break again, just raise a voice. Okay. Okay. As I was saying, I was introducing the concept of wokeism, which I say that it refers to a heightened awareness of social injustices and inequalities, and particularly the ones that the Black Lives Matter movement and those kind of things, gender, you know, anti-patriarchy. There's this word for feminism. Is it feminism? That kind of thing, and other marginalized identities, which I said it covers the LGBTQs and the neurodivergent people. And for neurodiversity, I say people who have maybe OCD, which is a disorder, ADHD, which is a disorder, people who have like the one Kanye West has, bipolar,
Sorry,
those kind of
Papsi,
people
you have started to break.
tend to be marginalized because of just who they are. So wokeism tries to make if I'll just welcome Dorcas to continue, let me go from Wi-Fi to bonus from the phone.
Okay. I think his attempted to define it, but I don't know if we even followed because of the breaking. Yes, Papsi? Papsi, you want to switch? Okay. I think as he switches, we can invite participation. We had tried to start it. Please give your own definition of wokeism. Please raise your hands. Yes, I see Morioki. Go ahead, Morioki.
Yeah, thanks, Dorcas. What I can say about it, it began with Afro-Americans when they're facing discrimination. So it's a word used to people who are fighting injustices. So it started with Afro-Americans, and it spread to things like LGBTQ. Yeah, that's what I can say. Thanks. Yeah, I'm done.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Morioki. He's giving us a bit of a background there. on how wokeism started. I wonder whether any other person has a definition that they would like to share. Additionally, I'd like to ask members, what about I see Mwana Falsafa has something to say. Yes, Mwana Falsafa, go ahead.
Well, I just probably a form of enlightenment, or at least these are who have seen. It's a kind of movement. It's a kind of movement for people who have seen. Hello. So I'm saying it's a form
Dorcas,
of
you've muted your.
it's a movement by.
Papsi, actually, I was speaking to Papsi. Please mute because we are getting feedback on your end. Yes, Mwana Falsafa, go ahead.
I'm saying it simply means these are people who are, it's a modern form of enlightenment. The people who have seen somehow seen the light, or somehow what they believe to be that light of the atrocities or the problems which the society, the majority of the people, the majority of society members have not really opened their eyes to. So I don't know whether it is always exaggerated in that matter or what, but it's like they have really seen the problems which the society is experiencing, and they think they have the solution, or at least they can correct something. So thank you.
Papsi, I wonder, have you been able to fix your audio, your device?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, great. You're back.
Yeah. So, where were you? Where were we?
People were still defining the term.
Okay.
And
All right.
somebody gave a bit of his.
You've muted again.
Yes, because I was done. I was telling you that we were still defining it, and then somebody gave some history behind it.
All right. Okay. So as I was saying, wokeism as a concept is derived from the term woke, which essentially refers to a heightened awareness of social injustices and inequalities that we see in society. And this encompasses injustices and inequalities that have to do with race, gender, and some other marginalized identities. And I remember saying some of these marginalized identities can come in form of sexuality, that is LGBTQ, and neurodivergence, which is said we have people who have ADHD disorder, OCD, bipolar, this kind of stuff. Yeah. And as I was saying, initially, woke as a term meant just to be awake to social and political issues. Like, for example, when you see the young people who are characterized as nonchalant in matters politics, and now all of a sudden they seem to be in it, they seem to know, they seem to be aware of the political undertakings in this country. So we would call that as woke, like the young people are woke in matters politics. So over time, it has evolved into being a broader social movement which advocates for social injustices, social justice. It advocates for equity, and it also advocates for systemic change. Again, if I was to use a good example, at the beginning of protests here in Kenya, you'd see that people were engaged in making people aware of the Finance Bill 2024, or when they were saying maybe reject this finance bill. They're trying to explain why we should reject the bill. So that, in this context, refers to the initial definition of woke, which was just to be aware to the political issues surrounding the finance bill. And then, as the protest evolved, uh, the work in the younger generation also evolved as the protests were evolving. So it stopped being just being aware of what the finance bill was about and rejecting it, to now focusing on equity, systemic change in the government system and such and such. So yeah. So today that's what we're gonna talking about, and I saw one of Falsafa had was trying to explain the origin of Wokeism, and I have tried to introduce the term. So I think we will head to the next subtopic, and the next subtopic is wokeism in social and political context. And some of the questions that we will be tackling in this subtopic is: how has wokeism influenced current social and political landscapes? Then another question is: in what ways has wokeism shaped public policies and laws? And the last one is: can any of you provide examples of wokeism manifesting in different sectors? For example, education, workplace, media, and I think I had already given an example of the protest in Kenya. So if maybe we'd have someone who can um, maybe expand on that, because I think I was just dealing with the skeleton part of it, but there's more to chew on that. So if we would see, I would have someone to raise his or her hand so that I can have him answer one of these questions. Okay, Murioki?
Yeah, I want to confirm. So Gen Z was wokeism, for sure.
Yes, come again.
Gen Z, what they are doing.
Yes.
That's wokeism
Yeah.
for sure. That's
True.
wokeism for sure, no doubt.
Yeah, in my books, that's okay.
Okay, just yeah.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. I just have to get that clear. Thanks.
Okay. Okay, Dorcas.
Can I also confirm what were the questions we were answering?
Okay.
Or
So
right
let
now,
me.
like, is it we are answering many questions at once, or we are answering one particular question?
I think let's start with the first question, which is subtopic number 2, and the subtopic is wokeism in social and political context. So the question is: how has wokeism influenced current social and political landscapes? Yeah.
Okay. How has wokeism influenced current social and political context? I think that's a very relevant question. But before I answer it, I'd also like to chime in on my understanding of wokeism, on the definition. So I agree with all of you that wokeism is indeed rooted in fighting against systemic injustices, standing up for civil rights or oppressed groups. However, there's another aspect I think we have ignored a bit which is the pejorative element of wokeism. In fact, even that ism that is added at the end is now becoming synonymous with an insult. If you Google wokeism, or if you YouTube search wokeism, you'll find that maybe 60% of the sources will be from conservatives who are usually denigrating the movement. They're speaking against it. Okay? So we have to be alert to that element as well. I think there was a presidential campaign I listened to by Donald Trump, and he was asking, what is woke culture? Who is somebody who is woke? Somebody who's woke, I tell you, is someone who's stupid. So there's that element where people use the word wokeism when they want to show how maybe liberal politics, progressive politics has gone too far, where they disagree with them and they think that they've become too sensitive to imaginary enemies. Yeah, so there's that element. I just had to throw that in there when we are discussing the definition. Now, on this one of the, let me read that question again. When you have so many things to answer, you can get lost. So the question is wokeism. The subtopic is wokeism in social and political context. Okay. So I think you gave a wonderful example. In Kenya, we have always regarded the young generation as disinterested in politics. In fact, this was something that came up during the video shoot. Please look out for it. We are going to upload it eventually on the new channel that we have set up. But this was something that came up during that video shoot. We were discussing the Gen Z protests and their attitude towards the church. So there we had narrowed it down to the church and religion. But generally speaking, the Gen Zs are embodying wokeism or woke culture because they are trying to fight systemic injustices. But the injustices that they are attacking are predominantly class-based. So this is very different from what is playing out in the Western part of the world. In the US, in fact, there's no class basis per se. They are more interested in identity politics, the version of wokeism that plays out in the States or in Europe. It is usually founded on identity politics. But here in Kenya, it is indeed class-based. There's the political class, and then there are the rest of us. So woke people or woke advocates have realized that the political class is taking advantage of us. They're taking us for a ride, and they are corrupt. They are plundering resources. They are taxing us to death. They are using the policing machinery to oppress us or to stifle dissenting voices. So they are speaking out. I think in Kenya, and in Kenya, and now slowly in the African continent, it is taking on that aspect, that political aspect of targeting the political elite who are not doing what they were supposed to. It's becoming a voice for the voiceless in that respect. But when you look at across the ocean in the US and in the European continent, where this entire movement began, I think there it plays out in terms of various social causes. Various social causes. I think Papsi tried to mention some of them. I can reiterate them. So we have a lot of woke supporters who advocate for environmental conservation and veganism. I think Morioki would be very happy there. And we see them defending gay rights or LGBTQ rights in general. We see them advocating for Black Lives Matter, especially during the COVID pandemic. There was actually a global movement to support Black people. There were different charters that were formed in different parts of the world where Black people are not the majority. So we see woke culture supporting that. We see them supporting those who are disabled. Yeah, people who are disabled. It is actually very big on diversity. And then we also see them fighting for let's say historically marginalized groups. So people who were affected by slavery and even colonialism. So they support reparations for people who are colonized, and they support reparations for people who were enslaved. I think that is where we see them being active. Their voices are being heard, and they are making an impact in society. So yeah, that's what I have to say. But maybe I can also add my own question. I know the moderator has his question. I can add my own question in line with that one, that subtopic of the political impact. So in Kenya, do you guys think that the political impact of woke culture will be sustainable? Is this just a blip in the radar? Is this a passing cloud now that President Ruto fired his cabinet and he's appointed others? We are not seeing people going back to the streets. Do you think this is just a phase and it will end, or is this something sustainable in the Kenyan political scene, this woke culture? Thank you.
Okay, so Dorcas has posed a question. Is there anyone who would like to respond to it? A very interesting question, indeed. Anyone? Okay, so let me. Morioki, okay. Morioki.
Yeah, thanks. So Ruto fired people, then he brought some of them back. Then I saw like Kiniki saying the kids who are killed, that's their problem. They should sort themselves out. So with that kind of with that attitude, there might be a problem, because now it's like if you get killed, it's your problem. So that can make it worse, or it can make guys more rebellious. Yeah, so it's hard to answer that question. Because now Kiniki doesn't care. He doesn't care about the guys who are killed. So that might scare guys or make them more add to the revolution. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, so to be clear, your point is that you feel that whatever impact of wokeism in quotes of what the young people are doing won't be sustainable for long. Murioki?
Yeah, might increase. Because I'm saying, he said he doesn't care about the guys who are killed. He said
Mm.
that's your problem. That's your problem now. Sort yourself out. So that's can be scary for some people, or make them more rebellious.
Okay. Anyone else who would love to give his take on the question? Okay, so let me try. So according to me, in the short term, I don't think it will whatever the young people did will have as a substantial impact, especially among the political class. But it's something like whatever they're doing. At least we can say we can attribute it the the protests. But in short term, I don't see much being done. But in the long term now, I feel like in the long term, there's a much bigger impact. In what ways? One, so for example, personally, I didn't vote in the last elections, but now I feel like it's like I have to vote. You get what I'm saying? As in, I'm feeling like I'm now aware that whether I vote or not, even if my vote is just one and it won't count in the bigger picture, but there's that thing of haba na haba hujaza kibaba. So if I vote and my friend votes and the friend of that friend votes, and maybe if I tell my friend to vote, if I vote then I tell my friend to vote, and if that friend tells his friend to vote, you'll find that there's a chain of voting that will create, which will have a bigger impact in the bigger picture. And then, of course, uh, we know in Kenya we were having this mtu wetu kind of politics where sisi watu wa milima au sisi watu wa western, sisi watu wa Ukambani, sisi watu wa coast. So people are now realizing that these kind of identities does not serve the people in any way. In any case, it's serving the people who are like joyriding the wave of mtu wetu politics. So if we say that sisi watu wa milimani, we come together and sisi watu wa milimani, the only person that would uh, benefit from this kind of politics is, let's say, Gashagwa and maybe that CS of Interior, Kithure Kindiki. Those kind of, they're the ones who are benefiting. But personally, I've never seen pesa ya Wakikuyu, pesa ya watu wa milima, and pesa ya watu wa Ukambani. Like, no, it doesn't work like that. So now, we young people, we know that Mutwetu politics is null and void. So in the long, as we continue to grow, we'll be influencing the people that are coming after us, and we'll also try to influence people above us. So that's like people like our parents. So that's why I'm saying that in the long term, there's that impact where there's that awakeness in the real political conundrum that has been plaguing this country. So people are now getting to understand what's up. So I don't know if I've answered that question correctly, but that's my take on it. So next, let's have Secular Kenyan. Secular Kenyan.
Hi everyone.
Ha.
I hope I'm audible. I hope I'm audible. Am I audible? I hope so.
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. So for me, I don't know. I've been trying to follow. I was on the road. I don't know what's the real definition of wokeism is, because I normally hear this the dictionary meaning seems positive, but when people use the word, it seems to have these negative connotations that that I can't really understand. So I don't know. It's an ambiguous word like spirituality. You know the way Christians use the word spirituality, and everybody knows how to discuss spirituality, but nobody knows how to define it. Everybody has their own definition, and I feel that's the same thing that's happening with the word wokeism. But for me, wokeism, originally is how I understand it in a positive manner is a shift from one line of thinking to another. So this in colloquial, in layman's term, it means a change in the way you look at life, because there are different ways in which people look at life. There are many issues that, as a society, at individual level, and as a society, we've been programmed just to do like one way or the other. Like there are things we've been taught to hate. So especially the older generation, they've been taught just to hate people from other tribe. They cannot tell you why, or you've been taught that some certain roles belong to certain class of people, certain gender, or certain tribe, or certain race. So, for me, being woke is having that conscious awareness. It's being logical now. It's trying to shed off that kind of thinking that is pre-programmed by the culture and the society around you, and asking yourself critical questions like, is this really how things should be done? Is there really a basis for whatever we are doing? So, like in many cultures in Africa, you find, people do this, people get some rituals are done after the kid is born, some rituals are done for baptism, some rituals are done for circumcision. All those practices that you've been programmed with over your life, do they make sense? Are they adding value to the society? Like things like dowry, is it something that's really necessary? Or if it's necessary, then you just fight, not because it's something that we do as people. We as Africans, we are this tribe, we do this. No, you can be able to defend every cultural now actions or cultural right or cultural preferences that you have on a logical perspective. So that's how I look at it. I had there was a question, but I didn't get the question. Maybe someone can repeat the question.
Dorcas, if you just repeat the question, please.
The question was for the woke culture in Kenya, which is embodied by the Gen Zs and their role in politics. Do we think that it is sustainable? The impact they have on Kenyan politics. Do we think the woke proponents who are involved in Kenyan politics, do we think the impact they have is sustainable? Ama, this is just a passing cloud, it's just a trend.
So that one depends with two factors. Number one, it depends if the movement we are seeing is genuinely organic. If, and I hope it is organic, then of course it's sustainable. And even if it's not, assume worst case scenario that this was a sponsored yes, the impact it is that it has left in the Kenya political system is going to last for a very long time. Because as you can see now, what we are having right now is some sort of co-governance. The level of impunity that we had witnessed before, like I don't care. There are situations where someone just messes up in Kenya, especially the political class, and they don't care at all. They knew, like corruption, was almost guaranteed that if you steal money, even now it's not very different, but if it's almost guaranteed that if you steal $1 billion and above, there's no way you're ever going to see prison. It's almost like a sure bet. It's more sure than actually earning money genuinely, you're sure you're going to get away. You are guaranteed to be able to compromise the political system. That kind of audacity, where now they would even not stop hiding it. They would openly steal the money and show it up. So what that Gen Z movement has done is it has brought in a shock for these people to know that it's actually possible to be held accountable. Number two, it has introduced a system of what do you call it? Co-governance, I would say. So because of the impunity, the political class had this thing that the common Mwananchi idea or decision or the Mwananchi's opinion are just there to be heard but not taken into cognizance. So that's why they would act like there isn't new to a particular area, but they would do whatever they want anyway. You can see how they passed the finance bill. They didn't care at all what happened. So of course now the system that is there is a cog. Of course, people are angry, but because of the compromises that the president has done, there is not much reason. There's half of the reasons that people went to the street. Half of them have been sort of superficially fulfilled. So people are like waiting for a reason now to go back to the street. And that has put the government on its toe, whether it's superficial or whether they mean it. It has put them in a position where they are worried. They are very careful about disappointing people. So they are stepping back and asking them questions and trying to act like they are actually doing something that is. So it has introduced that concept of co-governance. And finally, something interesting also happened, but this is slightly different from Gen Z. Yeah, the day before yesterday, 2 days ago, the Court of Appeal nullified the 2023 finance bill. I was reading that judgment yesterday, and one of the things they have really emphasized, 90% of the reason why it was rejected was public participation. And the questions that had been put by the respondent, there are about 20 respondents. Not respond. It was an appeal, so the respondents are the people who are taking the case to court, led by Okiya Mtata and another 20. The issues before the Court of Appeal, while number one, yes, the public participation, the court said yes, there was public participation, but it was not done in the right manner. Number one, after the public participation, the parliament went, drafted the bill, then took it to the floor of House, and then changed it again now to suit whatever they wanted. They added things that were not there during public participation. So the court said, no, you have to take it back after you change to the same people to approve in another public participation. The other thing the court said is, if you do public participation on any process, you must, and you ask people to present memorandum, then you must give a reason why you have accepted or you have declined any of those proposals. You cannot just choose, this one you're going for, this one. If you decline to follow one of the proposals, you must give a written, detailed reason for that. So that emphasizes the idea of co-governance that the Gen Z have started, where now, it was very surprising. Even us as a society, we sent a memorandum to the Commission of Religious Task Force. And we don't even think they took, I was reading that report also, I don't think they took much cognizance of what we present in that memorandum, maybe 1 or 2, 3 things. So we can even use this chance to go back to court and say, no, you have to give us reason why X, Y, Z, including taxation of churches, has not been taken into Nini. So this is a social awakening from where I stand. There's a social shift in the thinking. People have started to be optimistic that actually you can actually hold people, your leaders and politicians accountable. We are not there yet, but I think there's a shift that is really good. So the final question is, are the Gen Z going to take up idea and vote? I hope so, but I'm very skeptical. Thank you.
Okay. So Ndeve. Ndeve, if you are ready.
Okay, thank you. I kept muting myself. Thank you very much, Papsi. And thank you for everybody. I've missed a lot of the conversation because it's a Friday, it's summer. Well, it's a lot of things. But I don't know what has gone on with being woke or wokeism in the conversation, but I sort of have a question. And if I'm not clear, please let me know. It's not a question, it's not a concern. It's just, I want to bring it to the forefront that or a question. So is woke or wokeism a new thing? Do we think it is a new thing? Maybe you had gone there, but I'm thinking that it is not necessarily a new thing in any society. I think no, I don't think it's a new thing. These are steps that we take in evolution, the way I would put it. And if it's not a step in evolution, then what is it? Because when the first person, I always like to take the first person that decided to pipe, quote unquote, pipe water into the cave with a little container of leaves. Well, that was really woke. That's why I'm saying it that they are our steps in evolution, in our evolution. Because instead of this person going to the river every time, they went to the river once and they brought a little bit of water and they said, the next time I want water, I'm not going there. I'm going to drink what I brought. So that was pretty woke. That was a step in evolution, or a step towards the piping water or bringing water to the house. That was woke. Then we got, we kept on going and we did a lot of things. We decided, oh, don't go hunt meat. Bring the meat and keep the meat here in terms of goat, a horse, a pig, or hog. That was also quite woke. And to me, I consider it was a step, it was an evolution. Or maybe wokeism is a different thing, because I think woke is you wake up to an idea and you're not going back. Once you wake up to something, you're not going back. Then eventually we got religion, and then we are religion and education, and people decided, oh, I'm going to take my child to school. That was kind of that revolutionary or woke. And then more people did that. And I don't think we are going to go back and say that, no, we are not going to be educating people anymore. ABCs, the alphabet is no use. I don't think so. I don't know if it's a step in evolution or woke. Is woke something different? Can somebody maybe let us know if woke is not an evolutionary step? It's a different thing. And I'm also hoping that in Kenya, nobody is going to be eating what they got from us and vomiting on us, and not be afraid that we don't want somebody vomiting on us, that they won't be afraid. I just want them to be afraid to vomit on us. So yeah, I'm hoping that in Kenya, that realization, that evolution, that step that we have taken, thanks be to the generation Z, we are not going to go back. So can somebody let me know whether there's a difference between being woke or a wokeism or a evolution, or a step in our evolution? Thank you.
Okay. So, okay. Dorcas, do you want to respond to Ndeve, or should I give Bill first and then you?
Let Bill go first.
Okay, Bill. Bill, if you
Hello. Yeah.
hello.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So first, I think I'd like to clarify. From my point of view, I think the idea of associate, referring to the Gen Z movement as wokeism is not right, because I don't think the things that the Gen Z are fighting for are what comes to most people's minds when they think of wokeism. Like most of the time, when I think, at least for me, when I think of wokeism, I think of a social movement that is more targeted towards equality for the minority groups, and the Gen Z are just fighting for accountability from the government, which I think is like something that has been happening all the time. Like every generation has fought for something, for some form for accountability from the government. And okay, for wokeism, I think it encapsulates a lot of things, not just um, the economic factors. Like I think it should also cover things like religious freedom, sexual identities, sexual orientations, gender identities, um, with kama body positivity. It has to contain everything. Okay, so if I think when we label the Gen Z movement as wokeism, because it has this one part of wokeism, so it's like calling ourselves Christians because maybe we believe in humanity. No, like we share this one element with Christians, but there are many ideas that other Christians have, that Christians have that atheists do not agree with. Like most of the people who are on the streets up with this movement agency, if you could ask them their stance on it come abortion, which most people feel is a woke idea, or most of the work or the people from the work movement agree with the abortion and LGBTQ community na vitu kama hizo. I don't think most of them will accept the idea. So like what I think Sndeve pointed out, like when she was talking about every advancement in human culture, from technology to social factors and kama hizo, are all ideas that are work. Okay, it's kind of true because wokeism is that at least the members of the community believe it's an advancement. It's something that's improving the community. But I think it's supposed to be more on the social realm of things than the economic the technological factor. Because I don't think the work people are fighting for the need for AI vitu kama hizo. In fact, they're against AI. No, I just feel like it's not clarifying. I don't think the Gen Z should be classified as work. I think it's more. I think okay. Like, in fact, I think to come the gender is a work idea because advocate for the equality for women. To come the idea of nini kupea some communities, the marginalized community more income, more they are allocating more funds. I think it's also a work idea because in a promote equality for the marginalized community. But though again, I'm not, I don't like the idea of us putting ourselves in parallel with the ideas of Maju, because we're not really the same. And in kama US, our ideas are very different from them, and most of the ideas of wokeism is a Maju, and we're very different from them. The only thing we share in common is the us the youth wanna push the mambo ya Gen Z. Now most of the people who are considered woke are the youth, in my opinion. I'm done.
Okay, so next I will have Dorcas and then Morioki.
Okay. Wow, Bill, you've thrown a spanner in the works and changed the entire trajectory of the discussion, because I actually agree with you. You made such a pertinent point that we can't ignore. In as much as Maurice told us that the definition of wokeism is ambiguous, and it's almost like the term spirituality, it just depends on the person who is using the term for you to define it the way you want. For conservatives, it is used to pagorize individuals who hold ideas that they don't agree with. But for progressives, it is the dictionary definition, which is kind of positive. So I have to concede that we have a definitional problem to start with. We are working with a shaky foundation. The definition is not very clear. However, we can still try and pick a few terms here and there that create this animal called wokeism. And one of them is being alert to systemic injustices and oppression of minorities. So Bill mentioned that aspect of minorities being crucial to the movement. The Gen Zs in Kenya are not fighting for minorities or systemically oppressed groups. I don't know if you can call the rest of Kenya systemically oppressed, but we are not a minority group. We are the majority. We are the 99 point something percent of the population that the Gen Zs are fighting for. And I think that automatically disqualifies the protest, the anti-government protest specifically, as part of wokeism. However, we have to acknowledge that there are some Gen Zs in Kenya who are woke, who embody some of the liberal and progressive ideals that started in the West. Those things that I had mentioned previously, things like LGBTQ rights, things like environmentalism, veganism, and Black Lives Matter, feminism, those aspects brought together are what make up the woke movement. Are there Kenyan Gen Zs or Kenyans in general? You don't even have to be a Gen Z. Are there Kenyans who support those ideologies? Yes, absolutely. We have them, and they've also been vocal. They're not many. They're not as many as they are in the West, but we do have woke people here in Kenya. So I'm kind of with you on that, Bill, because you brought out that crucial element of wokeist proponents supporting minority groups and advancing historically oppressed groups' rights. So they must be minority groups. And unfortunately, that is not the case here in Kenya. We are not a minority group, or the Gen Z anti-government protests that started recently are not advocating for the rights of the minority. They are advocating for the rights of the majority. So that's a comment I wanted to make regarding what Bill just spoke about. Now, on the question that Ndeve asked, I will answer it, and I'll also answer my question. I asked it and I'll answer it, a teacher and a student at the same time. Ndeve is asking whether wokeism is new. As Morioki had said previously, the word itself started in the African American community when people were saying that they need to be alert to civil rights challenges. That's when technically it started. However, ideals of wokeism have existed in some form or another. Like the ideal of feminism. Feminism has been there from even your grandmother's time, Deve. She was probably, you might find that there might have been some feminists there. They were alert to systemic issues of an oppressed group. Yeah. Or the idea of environmentalism or gay rights or Marxism, yeah, Marxism or communism. It has also been advocating for the rights of the proletariat against the bourgeoisie or the owners of resources. So such ideals have existed, but not in imitation that wokeism has, because wokeism encompasses all of these aspects brought together. trans rights, gay rights, women's rights, and environmental rights, all of those being brought together at once. So if you just isolate one ideology, then that is not wokeism. But if you bring all of them together and they pertain to minority rights, then we can say that that is wokeism. So yes and no, Ndeve. Some components of wokeism have existed. Being alert to systemic oppression has existed, but not in terms of identity politics, the way wokeism centers on. Now, on the finally, my question, which was are the Gen Z protests sustainable? Now, this question becomes null and void after Bill spoke, because we have established that the Gen Z anti-government protests are technically not woke culture. But for the sake of debate and for the sake of conversation, I would say that I think they are sustainable, but not in the permutation in which they have occurred. So we have seen those protests focusing on President Ruto must go. That's what they've been saying. But I think in the future, what will happen is people will no longer care who is in power. They will care about what the person is doing. So as Secular Kenyan mentioned that word co-governance, I think that is what will happen going forward. The Gen Zs will be watching the political moves of our leaders, and they will be calling them to account. A giant has awakened. It was asleep for so long, but now they are awake. Now they are interested in governance in our country. So it is very likely that going forward, maybe they might not go to the streets because the protests have taken on a violent turn. So maybe they might not go to the streets continually, but what they will do is they will be calling out these leaders. They'll be active during the elections. That voter apathy is gone. People are going to show up and they're going to vote for the leader they think will take the country forward or will take their constituency forward. I think in the future we are likely to see people filing impeachment motions. I think we are also likely to see people participating in town hall meetings and engaging in public participation whenever there is a bill that is being passed. Any bill that has adverse implications in our way of life, I think we are likely to see more Gen Zs getting involved. But as I said, as I finish, this aspect, this movement is not technically wokeism because it's not defending the rights of the minority, which Bill highlighted in his contribution. So thank you for that, Bill.
Okay. Dorcas, akona potential to politicians. What are you doing about it, Dorcas? Anyways, so let's go to subtopic number 2. And if you can check at the charts, I've just posted the subtopic and the questions that are related to it. So the subtopic is about criticisms and support for wokeism. So the question number 1 is, what are the main criticisms of wokeism? Number 2, why do some people support and advocate for wokeism? And how do proponents of wokeism respond to its critiques? So basically, why is wokeism bad, or how is it not beneficiary, and also why is it beneficiary, why is it good? So that kind of question. So the questions I've just posted them to the chat section. If if you just open the chat section, you'll see the subtopic there. So I'll go with Murioki, then Bill. Murioki.
Just a quick become Afro Americans. When they are fighting against racism, they used to be accused of being racist themselves. At times, they are being told, even you're also being racist. It reached a point as they fight for their rights, they're being told you're also being racist. So that was one criticism. Thanks.
Okay. Bill.
Okay, so I think my main issue, I think the general idea is good. The idea that people should be treated equally is good. But I think my main concern with the woke ideology ni thinking kwamba it's other people have a responsibility to make things good for you or easy for you. So I use the body sensitivity thing as an example where people the people who are overweight and they work according to the work culture, the world should create ways of accommodating them. So like there should be larger seats complain to accommodate the overweight people. But my issue with that is like I think most things are not created for everyone. They are created for what is best for the majority of the people. And creating things that you can accommodate everyone might be costly and unnecessary. So so for instance, most doors in Kenya is got 2 meters high. Huwezi tengeneza mlango yenye iko 3 meters because there are people who are over 3 meters tall. Because it's not meant for everyone, it's meant for the majority that most people will fit in a door that is 2 meters high. Same to the size and need the width. Most doors are around 1.5 meters wide, 1 meter wide. So the idea kwamba we have to accommodate everyone is ridiculous in my opinion. Like one, not everyone should be expected to accommodate everyone else. I think the few should find a way if there's a way they can fit with how the majority operate. Then because it's easier than making everyone else to change to fit your specific needs. I'm done.
Okay. So Bill, let me ask you something. Given the argument on, okay, you're saying that people, for example, the overweight people should find a way of being like the majority, which I understand completely. But let's say, for example, someone maybe is overweight because of his or her genetic makeup, and not necessarily because of just laziness in working out or overeating and stuff. So he's maybe overweight in a way that even if he was to engage in fitness to lose weight, he would have to do 10 times more than what an average person would do. So your point doesn't your point come out as a tyranny of the majority in a way, in some sense?
Oh,
I mean,
I think
I mean
wait, wait. I think I need to clarify. Like I'm not
mm,
saying combat like they should not be like accommodated. The point
mm,
is like your demand the combat everyone should accommodate you. No, in that we like
mm,
that let's say if that airlines
mm,
has got a specific seat or maybe the
mm,
overweight about the disabled senior, but it
mm.
would be unrealistic to expect all planes to have seats that accommodate the overweight and the disabled because as it are fit for the other people. You get.
Oh, okay, I
So
get you now.
maybe you can set like standards, maybe like that. Maybe they can even be given maybe one seat for every plane. That will make sense. Like in expecting like all planes should have same all seats should be accommodating them. It's quite realistic, no?
Yeah, I get you now. Okay, so Dorcas. Oh, is there anyone else? Okay, Dorcas.
Okay. So I agree with everybody that the intention of woke culture is good. It's always a great idea when you are fighting against injustice. That is welcome. On the other hand, how they accomplish their goal is the problem that I have with them. I also disagree with some of their ideologies. Okay, I disagree with them, but there's no problem with disagreeing with somebody. But when they set up mechanisms to stifle dissent, then that is a problem. So I have three main objections or main problems to woke culture. And this is the reason why I don't consider myself to belong to that movement. If you asked me, Dorcas, are you woke? Are you a wokeist? I would say no. I do agree with some of the ideologies like feminism, of course, I'm a proud feminist, environmentalism, things like those, but there are also other things I don't agree with. And I predominantly don't agree with their tactics. So the problem number one is their dogmatism. Woke people have an almost religious mindset. It's pseudo-religious, or it's like a civil religion in that it's dogmatic. If they take a stance on a particular issue, they treat it as gospel truth, and they do not tolerate divergent opinions. In fact, they are going to bully you, they are going to silence you, they are going to punish you in whichever ways they can. Usually these ways are virtual on social media. They can troll you, or they can take it the next step and cancel you. So they have this thing called cancel culture, where they pressure your employer to fire you because you are not playing to their tune. That is a problem. When your idea is solid, you should be bold enough to tolerate dissent. This is something we have been complaining about as atheists from time immemorial when we are talking about Islamophobia. We've been saying that there's no idea that should be above criticism. You should be bold enough. If you're confident in your idea, you should be bold enough to engage in discourse, in positive discourse with people. But with woke individuals, they don't have time for that. As long as you hold a contrary opinion, they will descend upon you. They will put pressure on your employer or even on clients, on people who patronize your products, and they will say, we need to cancel this person. A case in point was my role model, Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. I love that woman. She has a way with words. She knows how to put into words the things that I can only think about in my head. And I remember there was a time she did an interview in the UK where the interviewer asked her, do you think women, trans women, are women? And Chimamanda said, no, trans women are not women. Trans women are trans women. I agree with her. You guys know my position on trans people. They're trans women. They're different from biological women. That's why we hyphenate the word. That's why we add that component, trans. They're different. She's acknowledging a material reality which is real, which exists. It's there. It's empirically backed. It's reality, it's self-evident that trans people are different from biological women. She was speaking reality, but the transgender advocates, the woke people, called her a transphobe. And they attacked her on all social media outlets. The woman was bullied. The woman could not rest until she wrote a very good article for, I believe, the New York Times, or is it the BBC, one of the big international media outlets. And she expressed the intolerance for dissent. What is that about? This idea of trans women being women?
You're breaking, Dorcas. You're breaking, eh?
Oh, where did you lose me at? Where did you lose me from? So that I can
angry.
try and.
The trans people were angry. They got angry.
Oh, okay. So you did lose me when I was too far. So the trans people were angry at her. They were calling her a transphobe, and they wanted to cancel her. They wanted people to no longer buy Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie's books. For those of you who might not be familiar, she's a novelist, she's a writer, and she's also one of the most vocal African feminists. And Chimamanda spoke out against them. She stood up against them. And the reason why she won was because Chimamanda has money and she has clout. But if it was just your typical Dorcas here, or your typical Morioki, if you were cancelled by the woke people, let me tell you, your life would be over. You would no longer have a job, and things would be terrible. So that's my first objection. They are dogmatic. They have an intolerance for dissenting opinions. They don't engage in debates, in healthy debates. Instead, they just want to silence you, even though the idea they are pushing for is relatively new. This issue of transgenderism hasn't even finished a decade. And you accept people to just take it wholeheartedly without questioning it, without debating it. No, that's not the way to go. That's being dogmatic. That's being pseudo-religious. Number two is I have a problem with the performative aspect. The performative aspect of woke culture, in that it focuses on some superficial things rather than truly making meaningful change. Morioke, can get feedback from you. Please mute. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So there's a performative aspect of woke culture in that they really want to show how eager they are to protect the oppressed rights. They especially love social media. You'll see them putting the rainbow flag to show they support gay people, or you'll see them protecting those fat positive, body positive, my gosh. Fat is a pejorative term these days. The body positive people, you'll see them supporting them, but they have not really seriously engaged with the matter, or many of them don't even go to the streets or the whole 9 yards to cause social change. So sometimes it is superficial, sometimes it is performative, and I have an issue with that. Lastly, I object to a victim Olympics. It's kind of like everyone is trying to be a victim. Because of that identity politics, they really overemphasize the systemic issues at the expense of personal responsibility. Because sometimes personal responsibility is the reason behind a certain problem. Now, like that example Bill gave of body positivity, those are not victims. Those are people who brought on that issue to themselves, but they want to make it out like, oh gosh, they're oppressed, or they are such victims. Yeah, I need state assistance. I need special favors. because of this. So I think sometimes they lose the plot when it comes to not taking personal responsibility for some aspects. Granted, there are indeed some minorities that are oppressed, yeah, but there are others that bring on the problems to themselves. Now, as I leave you guys, because that was the last objection that I have to wokeism, can I leave you with this question pertaining to personal responsibility versus systemic oppression? The Black Lives Matter movement, okay? The Black Lives Matter movement. Do we think that the condition of Black people in the States, in the United States specifically, because wokeism began there, do we think it is predominantly because of systemic issues, systemic racism for that matter? Or do we think it is Black culture? Do we think Black people are avoiding responsibility? They are overrepresented in jails. They account for the highest number of crimes that occur in the States. It's Black people who are shooting each other. In fact, Black on Black crime accounts for the highest number of deaths of Black people, not the killing of Black people by white police. Yeah, we have the drug problem. Yeah, so that's my question to you on Black Lives Matter, because many woke people support the Black Lives Matter movement. But now, what is your take? Do you think it is systemic racism, or do you think that it is the lack of personal responsibilities, personal choices that Black people in America are making? Patsy, are you there?
Morioki?
Mr.
Morioki?
Okay, yeah, Dorcas, thanks for your question. Just a quick answer. I noticed these gangbangers, they are very young. And it's also, they have no fathers. They grew up with their mothers, who are also, they're on drugs or something. So I think a young mind, for me, my opinion is they have no choice because the brain of a young person is not developed. So they join gangs and crime because they have no family, there's no family structure, and they are poor. So now all that is coming from poverty, no family structure. So now it's something valid that it's I don't blame them, but it's valid because they are destroyed after slavery. They are put in ghettos with poor housing, they have no education, no jobs. So now they are vulnerable to such things. Then again, they brought in drugs to the community. So now drugs made it worse. So it's genuine because it's not their fault because they are a young kid of 12 years old who know better but to join a gang. Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Never.
Thanks, Papsi. That Black Lives Matter, it's such a big thing to unpack. But let us just, even if we are just going to deal it from the periphery, just somewhere. This is what I find even here. If you can actually tell that a neighborhood has got a lot of immigrants or newcomers, and sometimes even not very newcomers, by the general appearance of the place. You have not lawn chairs, or outdoor furniture that is just thrown, garbage flowing, all, like garbage all over the place. Now, that right away tells you something. And I'm not saying that there are no white people with issues, but generally you can be able to tell what is happening in a neighborhood. In fact, when I came here, I decided I was going to live in not necessarily a good house, but in good neighborhood, because I thought that what I wanted to introduce my child to was exactly how Canadians live. So, but eventually, of course, yeah. So eventually, we worked over that until we could be in a good house, in a good neighborhood. But it was just a decision that I made. So if you can't afford a lot, you can afford to live in a basement, but in a good neighborhood. You don't necessarily have a good, expensive bedroom or something. No, you have got a basement. Now, basement can also be good living, but it is quite dark. Okay, the windows do not light up the whole area. But so I think you do understand what I'm talking about. That you are living, let us say you are living in Lavington, but in SQ. Hey, Kai, you are in Lavington. Trust me. Oh no, Lavington is no longer. During my time, it was Lavington. Now I think it is other places, Kileleshwa and Karen. Yeah. So when you say Black Lives Matter, when we say Black Lives Matter, we have to say that our lives matter, and we also have to behave as if our lives matter. We have to behave as though we don't want to be surrounded by garbage, like papers flying all over the place. You did not put out your garbage to the garbage collector, and the garbage collector is there every week. You have no excuse. But it is just generally because your neighbor has got their furniture all over the place, then you have your furniture all over the place. And the other person doesn't really have a problem having their garbage all over the place. I'm just going to ignore that one. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so I was saying, you will find that it catches, so bad things catch. If the other kid has a gun, your kid is going to catch that. We catch that kind of thing, as we all know. We catch those kind of vibes and behavior as we grow up, or according to where we live. You might not be that kind of person, but you'll catch those behaviors. So when we say Black Lives Matter, it has to start with us, that we treat ourselves and we treat each other with respect, so that other people can treat us with respect. But again, if the majority of people can only afford to live in a certain neighborhood where the houses, never see paint, where the houses belong to the city, and we all know how, the city is likely to treat the houses, or to do with the houses, they're kind of, you become a kind of something. I've seen people, they can afford even to paint their house, but they'll never even pay. And by the way, here, paint is one of the cheapest way to freshen up a house. And most kids actually know how to paint because they paint their bedrooms. So even when people can afford to do that and make their house look better, they won't do that, because they will be saying, it belongs to the city. And no, it doesn't belong to the city. You're the one that is living in it now, and you've been living in it for 10 years, and probably you'll be living in it for another 10 years. So I'm just trying to say that some of the things that I see, even if the system has a conspiracy of its own, according to has a conspiracy of itself on some members of the society and some groups. The groups should not also join to conspire against themselves. So I'm also saying that there are things that we can do for ourselves, that we are able to do for ourselves. I remember sometimes visiting a household for hair. They did hair at home, and you could see. I think they had a lot of money. They never cooked. They always ordered out. Now ordering food, or order in or order out, is actually not very cheap. It's expensive. And I used to look at them and like, they've got a good kitchen. They've even a very nice, wonderful dining table. But why don't you cook some food? And no. And then I had a tenant, and they did the same thing. They would have a big heap of pizza boxes, and so also they ordered food a lot. Now, hey, at the end of their tenancy, I was very glad that they did not cook a lot, because the kitchen was clean. I didn't have a lot of work to do in the kitchen, so no grease, no, But anyway, so what I'm saying is that we must recognize that there are things that, because there are situations, because we are in those situations, we go down. We go down, unless, even when we fight, even when you fight, that you are, it's very easy for you to go down, even as an adult. Now imagine the kids, they all go down, and you can say, oh, Black Lives Matter all you want, but it's going to be very difficult. So I understand that, particularly the city of Ottawa, they've decided that they are not going to be lumping all immigrants together in one area. But then again, there's a problem with that, because the city housing, usually it is a whole lot of houses together. So unless now they change how they build city houses, then it's hard. But the idea would be to distribute the people all over the place and let them learn that when your garbage is flying all over the place, everybody is looking at you badly. So yeah, so I just wanted to give you a little bit of a smattering of a little bit of how in Canada, or in the places that I have lived, how it is. So you will find that you will see that the neighbors won't like it if your grass is long, and
Okay.
your lawn is not very well taken care of, and also so they won't like it, because you're
Good.
bringing down the value of their. I'm going to wind up in a minute. Thanks, Papsi. Yeah, so they won't like it because you're taking down the value of their property. But again, you will also do it because you're proud of your house, or your household, or the place you live in. So that is what I wanted to say for now. Thank you. And yes, Black Lives Matter, and all lives matter. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So I'm looking at my watch here, and we have like around 38 minutes to 11, and we still have like 1, 2, 3, 4 subtopics to cover. So let's do this. So I'll name the third subtopic, of which anyone who wants to say something, let's take about 2 to 3 minutes maximum, so that we can deal with the rest, so that we can finish discussing the remaining the topics remaining in time. So the third subtopic is about impact of wokeism on free speech. So in matters free speech, what are the impacts of wokeism? I saw earlier that Charles Sondalo had raised his hand. I don't know if maybe Charles, you would love to say something on impact of wokeism on free speech.
2020. Just a second. Uh-huh. Yeah, so I guess maybe it's already been said. I think the idea of cancel culture, becoming a thing, because like there's this new dogmas Dorcas was saying that no one should go against, and so like I think, and it's interesting because it's I think people from different. I think something to note is that people from different irreligious or religious backgrounds have been agreeing on the rise in cancel culture because like obviously religious people like Christians like myself have been against or being forced to acclimatize to the cultural norms, like being forced you have to bake a cake for a gay person or you're homophobe or something like that. But also like you'd find like even atheists there's a guy called Brett Weinstein. Then there's also, who's this guy? The moral landscape guy. What's his name? I've been forgotten. Sam Harris, who is, I guess, considered an Islamophobe because of his views against Islam, or no, I think he says Islam is probably more harmful to society than other religions. So he's gotten some flack on that, and I think you guys also know Richard Dawkins does not subscribe to the LGBTQ agenda, especially the transgenderism one. And so like I think what I found interesting with regards to the infringing on free speech is that it's affecting everyone regardless of belief system. So I don't know if this is where you can say that religious people and irreligious people like are in agreement that like we should kind of fight woke culture or something like that. Although like I think maybe it will take time to develop how, and I think people have already spoken about like how this idea of wokeness came to be. And I think, so you'll find, for example, you'll find some atheists who are considered woke, some who are not considered woke, some religious people who are woke, those who are not woke. So like it seems to be affecting the whole of society. I think it's making people change the way they're seeing things. Because I know, like, for example, there's a guy called Jordan Peterson who used to be, I guess, an atheist. Then like he started having affinities towards Christianity, or at least religion, because he's felt like the wokeness. And I guess even guys like Ayan Hirsi Ali, she's also a former atheist. And so like they felt like the reason why the wokeness came to be, and I think there are people who would call it critical theory and other things, is because attack on religion left a vacuum such that now everybody was left to decide what their morality would be. And so like this so-called critical theory / wokeism came to take a center stage. So like some atheists are now being more friendly towards religion because they're feeling, wow, it seems religion was really important. Because now without it, because it's being attacked so much, the world is going crazy, and people are just, it's just the woker you are, the more applause you get. So like, I think it's interesting. I think we need to discuss more about how, like, would it really be true? Attack on religion without any real replacement with something substantial has led to us getting to this place of cancel culture. So I think it's something important to take note of. Sorry if I've taken too much time. I think that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. That was some heavy stuff. Yeah. So yeah, that was pretty heavy. Anyone else who'd love to chime in something? Anyone? Anyone maybe has a question to Charles? Okay. But then there's this thing that happened at the Olympics. Yes.
Yeah, Dorcas didn't give her answer. Dorcas was to give her answer of the question she asked.
Okay, Dorcas.
Morioki, you're talking about which one?
Then Black Lives Matter. Is it valid? Black Lives Matter.
Oh,
The question is,
oh, okay. Uh-huh.
you forgot.
Now, no, actually, that's why I'm raising my hand, but I also wanted to comment on something which Charles Wandalo said. So, like the norm, I like to remind YouTube that Charles Wandalo is a Christian apologist. That's why he seems to be protecting and advocating for Christians and the religious worldview. Now, he said something interesting, which I just can't let slide. He said that, do we think, it was actually a question, do we think that if religion, if we eradicate religion, we create a gap which is eventually filled by people in the woke culture? And those people in the woke culture start to engage in negative aspects like cancel culture. And I'd like to I'd like to tell Charles that your remedy is more poisonous than the disease. The church has been the worst source of cancel culture. Oh my goodness, the church has been the enemy of progress from time immemorial. It has suppressed dissent like you can't believe. Why? Because the church is a religion and religion is dogmatic. It decides on a certain position without considering evidence and says that because this is the truth, any other position is unacceptable. And they are going to cast it out. So we saw this during the Enlightenment era, when people were making scientific discoveries. Galileo Galilei, when he established that the sun does not revolve around the earth, instead it is the reverse that is true. This went against religious dogma in the Bible. That verse which talks about Joshua making the sun stand still in order to win a battle, that was going to be contradicted by this scientific discovery made by Galileo Galilei. So the church tried all it could to keep him from peddling or from spreading this truth. The church was engaging in cancel culture. The church has been doing that so many ways. We had the Spanish Inquisition. We had people who are literally killing others before. Actually, what they would do is they would preach to you, you convert and say, yes, now I am a Christian, in a desperate bid to save your life. And then eventually they kill you, and then they say, it's okay, even if he dies, he'll go to paradise. That is the thing that you're trying to say is superior to woke culture. At least with woke culture, their cancel culture is only on social media or only in terms of your economic outlook. You can lose your job or the patronage of your business. That's it. But they don't do you any physical harm. But in the church, if you look at it historically, cancel culture was violent. So please get off that high horse. Your prescription is worse than the disease. The church cannot lecture us on cancel culture. It is the most intolerant. It is dogmatic. Dogma by its very nature is intolerant of divergent opinions. Now, on this question of, now I've forgotten, oh yeah, okay, Black Lives Matter, where it is so heavy. I did a lot of research on this, guys. It is so heavy. We will go on a rabbit hole, and yet we are out of time, and we still have so many other questions to respond to. But it is not a yes and no answer. It is a yes and no answer. Yes, there is systemic racism that has explained why Black people are overrepresented in the criminal justice system in America and why many of them are losing their lives compared to non-Black people. So there are systemic issues and there are also personal responsibility issues. So it is both. The systemic issues include the legacy of slavery and Jim Crow or segregation era, the fact that they were not given land or property after slavery was abolished. So if you don't have land, how are you going to take care of your family? You don't have a way of earning a living sustainably. What that means is that crime will become appealing. It will become like the only option. Okay, so there's that aspect, the legacy of slavery. There are also some laws that were passed during the Reagan administration, the war on crime and the war on drugs. Those ones have been detrimental and discriminatory towards Black people. There was this law that was passed, which would give you a minimum of 10 years imprisonment for carrying 5 grams of crack cocaine. Now, crack cocaine is the version of cocaine that is taken by African Americans because it's cheap. Then there's another version of cocaine, powder cocaine, which is taken by now the white guys and other non-Black people in America. So for that one, if you're caught with powder cocaine, you will only get 10 years imprisonment if you have 500 grams. Crack cocaine, 5 grams. Powder cocaine, 500 grams. And it was argued that President Reagan kind of targeted Black people because of that. So it's not that the amount of drugs that Black people take is more than the ones that Caucasians take. It's just that the type of drugs they take have been targeted in the criminal justice system. And this is why they're overrepresented in jails. And I told you guys during the drug discussion that I don't think people should be arrested for possession, for addiction. For addiction, I think they need treatment and they need behavior therapy. Yeah. What people should be arrested for is drug trafficking, the selling of drugs, not the taking of drugs. So that has affected Black people disproportionately. And then there have been many other discriminatory things like stop and frisk in traffic. More Black people are likely to be stopped in traffic than white people. So that is definitely discriminatory and it will lead to an overrepresentation of Black people in jail. However, there are also personal responsibility issues that are leading to the loss of lives of Black people in the States. We have the idea of gang culture. Yeah, we also have the idea of excessive consumerism, focusing on buying FUBU and the latest Gucci or whatever, the latest designer brands, instead of dwelling on more sustainable buys, more sustainable items. So I think that is an issue. We also lack a community solidarity. Oh, my time is up. Okay, let me just make that last point. Community solidarity among Black people, they don't buy from each other the way Asians do. So they don't build their businesses. They don't build themselves. So that is also a personal responsibility issue. It is intersystemic issue, but both of them count. Thank you for your tolerance of my rant.
Okay. But there's this scenario, not a scenario, there's this thing that happened to the Olympics at the beginning where it is alleged that the planners of the event somehow was simulating Jesus' Supper, but in a more comical way that Christians, for some reason, did not like it. They felt insulted. And you know what I was seeing on Twitter? They were saying like, oh, we should, like they were trying to like make other people forgo those companies in favor of others. Basically, they were trying to cancel those companies that are involved in supporting the Olympics and stuff. So, anyways, my point is, what do you think about that? And this is not a real-time question; it's just a question for you to chew on. So let's go to the next subtopic, which is wokeism and cultural change. So, what is the relationship between cultural change and wokeism? Yeah. So, what is the relationship between cultural change and wokeism? Does wokeism facilitate cultural change in some ways, in some places, in some aspects, and such stuff? Yes. Anyone who would like to give a comment or say something about that? Anyone? Yes, Burioki.
I'll go back to where it came from, America. To be honest, I don't think where it was in the 60s is where it is now. I'm not there, but okay, it's not perfect, but though it was in the 60s, the way blacks are being treated, I think there's improvement. So some of the wokeism somehow worked. It's better than in the 60s. Thanks.
Good. David?
Thank you, Papsi. I think in wokeism, just like in everything else, you have to claim, you have to take what you think is rightfully yours. I don't think it is it's given. So definitely it will change the culture, hopefully for the better. I don't know about even a little bit, even canceling a few things, some statutes of people that should not even be honored. We should cancel some of those people if they did something that was awful, and some people really did awful things. In fact, I think you might know that here in Canada, quite a number of bad things happened, but Canada looks polite, and yeah, we all look polite, but we are not. There were things that were done to the First Nations. First of all, they started by giving them blankets that had polio, and they caught polio, and they did not have immunity to polio, and lots of them died from polio. I mean, if people from space come and get into contact with us, there could be things that we are not immune to that they have. We're going to die. So without really knowing, many First Nations died from contact with the Europeans. And then when the Europeans realized that, they were dying from polio, they were not immune to polio, it was weaponized. Polio was weaponized. Then there was boarding schools. Now, boarding schools here, whenever I say I went to a boarding school, secondary school, everybody looks at me with pity because boarding schools in Canada is a bad word. It was an awful experience for First Nations. First Nations you might call them Aboriginals, but here we call them First Nations for obvious reasons. They are First Nations. They were here first. And the kids were forcefully removed from their parents because they said their parents were not good parents, and they put them, very, very young people, very, very young, into boarding schools run by the governments and where are you, Wandal? They were run by the church. And there was there was suffering. They were destroyed, basically. They were destroyed. It was not like you, me and you, some of you who went to boarding school and you were 15 or 14. These were kids, and the schools were being run by sexual predators and evil people. So when you look at that, you say somebody who was being honored for introducing such a system, well, bring down their statue. They should not, they can't get honor anymore. Even if you are saying that in hindsight, you are also saying that, oh, they must have known, they must have assessed the project, how it is going, and must have known. Did you take your kid out of your family and put them in boarding school? Why is it another person's kid that you are putting in that situation? If your kid is not going in that situation, I mean, you know what you're doing. It's because you don't like that situation very much. It's just the same that in Kenya, you know that your member of parliament is not going to the hospitals that you go to. They go to South Africa or to India. It's because they don't trust the place where you are going to be being treated. So I'm just trying to put it bare how it is that they ought to have known that it was so good. So hey, your work, pull down their statue. You cannot honor them if they were such evil people, and that probably something I think is good about being woke. But the next thing about being woke is that I hope that society will take what is good and run away with it. And then we are not going to ever go back to where we think it is okay to annihilate or to nyanyasa, to persecute people just because they are a minority or just because they don't look like us, that we can treat them badly, we can treat them in an evil way. I think, I think in that way, society is definitely going to gain from work. Thank you.
Dorcas?
Okay. My light is low, so let me not turn on my video this time. I still have to respond to the previous question. I got carried away with the other questions, so I forgot to answer that one. Let me answer that one and this one very quickly. What is the impact of woke culture on free speech? I think it is a net negative. It is causing a spirit of fear in people when they don't have when they have dissenting ideas. People are thinking certain things, but they're scared of saying them because of the fear of reprisal from woke individuals. So I think that's an element that they need to change. They need to use more persuasive, more pragmatic, more positive ways to cause change rather than to cancel people, because cancellation always stifles free speech and liberal values. Now, on this one of what is the impact of woke culture, or wokeism on culture, the impact is great. It's diverse. We cannot address it all here, but I can say that one of the things we've seen is historically oppressed groups are being given a voice, and some of them are also being reparated. So, like the example which Ndeva gave of First Nation peoples or Native Canadians. In the US, it's Native Americans or Aboriginals in Australia. Those people are getting paid for the historical injustices that were done to them. Now, I have my opinion on reparations. But before I mention it, I'd like to ask people, okay, I know niko na tabia mbaya. Every time I contribute, I also have to ask a question, but maybe I should have been a journalist in another life. So if I may ask you guys, do you support reparations for being exterminated, being oppressed as a First Nation person, as a native, Aboriginal, or for colonialism, or for slavery? Do you support being given money for the crimes that were committed by people's ancestors? Because some white guys are complaining that it's not their fault. Why should we pay the price for our great-great-grandfather's mistakes? They're not the ones who owned you guys as slaves. They're not the ones who colonized you. So why should we pay you that money? So what is your opinion on that? But overall, as I summarize, the impact has been empowering for historically oppressed groups. Nowadays, you find in various corporations, they pay attention to diversity and inclusion. They respect people's beliefs, people's cultures and religions. And there's also the aspect of affirmative action, because they realize that, for instance, Black people, they've been historically oppressed. They've been poor, and there was nothing that was done to restore the balance. So they now try to give them a hand up by affirmative action. So overall, I think it has a positive impact. It has had a positive impact on the culture. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll have Waruki, do you want to speak, or you had spoken earlier?
Yeah, I want to speak just for a short while. Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah. For me, the best payment to give somebody.
And then
yeah.
Pastor Stano will follow.
What I'd say is these people who are oppressed, Native Americans, Afro Americans, the best payment is a free education. Give them free. That's the best payment. Thanks.
Okay, Pastor Stano. Stanley.
Yeah, for me, I just to respond to Norokas. Suppose I come and steal the land of a certain family. Then that land or that wealth, my children are the one that I'm benefiting, but the children of Dorcas are suffering. Is it not right for my children to compensate for the children of Dorcas? Because they are suffering because of what I did. And my children are living a lavish life because of what I did to Dorcas. That is what I can say. For those colonies who oppresses us, they are supposed to pay us, because those countries are very developed because they stole material from our countries, and they are prospering because of what they did to us. So they should pay us as the children of those who they oppress.
Papsi, are you saying something? We can't hear you.
Okay.
Papsi? Oh.
Oh, okay. just confirm to me.
Papsi, are you saying something?
Uh,
Okay, now we can hear you.
So we are going to our second last subtopic, and so we are in this subtopic we'll try to compare wokeism and other social movements, and I would like us to focus on ones that we know very well or we are accustomed to, or maybe it's a bit familiar. And one is the feminist movement and the LGBTQ rights movement. I think those are very well off, and they're a bit controversial with Devil. And then Dorcas, I want to hear your your what is this well, okay, let's start with Devil, then I'll come to Dorcas. Devil.
Okay. I don't know if work and feminism and I don't know, maybe that is also work. I mean, that's probably, yeah, that's probably also work. But I wanted mainly to correct a disease. I said that the blankets that were given to Native American Canadians were contaminated. I used polio, but it is smallpox. I wanted to correct that. They were contaminated with smallpox, which the natives were not immune to. So I wanted to correct that. I probably should stay away from the feminism and LGBTQ in terms of wokeism, because I thought I did not connect them to wokeism, but they are social issues, and yeah. But I'll kind of stay away from those because oh boy, wokeism, yeah, and yeah, I will stay away from those. Thank you.
Papsi? Papsi, Mr. Moderator.
Yes.
Papsi, unalala wewe.
Okay.
You are breaking off. You're breaking off.
Yeah. So Dorcas.
Remind me the
And
question.
ilikuwa nimeshika simu, so you know what happens when you have a phone in your hand. So okay. Dorcas, can you say something about feminism, of how you deploy your
Sorry, repeat that last bit.
tools of armor, like how you do, how you about feminism vis-a-vis wokeism. Hello, am I audible?
Okay. Yes, you are. Similarities between wokeism and other social movements, specifically feminism. I think there are parallels, and then there are also divergences between them. I think the parallels or the similarities are that They are both fighting systemic issues, and they are both fighting for a historically marginalized group. Now, with feminism, it is specifically dwelling on women's rights. But with wokeism, it dwells on various groups. Feminism is just centered on one. Wokeism, several. So we have LGBTQ rights, we have environmentalists, we have Black people, racial minorities, we have women. Yeah. So feminists are part of the woke movement, but the woke movement is not necessarily feminist. They're similar, but they're not the same. Why? Because of the groups that they dwell on. So with feminism, it dwells on women, but with wokeism, it dwells on an amalgam of groups. So as I told you guys before, that I agree with some of the groups that they choose. Now, like gay rights, I am for gay rights because I looked at the evidence and I have found that it is a very natural predisposition. It has been found homosexual behavior has been tested in close to 400 animal species on homosexual or bisexual behavior. So my research shows that gay rights are inalienable and they should be supported. But with trans rights, hey, that is another animal. That is another animal altogether. I think people should be free to express themselves the way they want. If you want to be a masculine woman or a feminine man, it's okay. If you want to wear makeup, it's fine, and you're a man. Or if you want to wear a skirt, it's okay. Knock yourself out. But forcing me to pretend that now that makes you a woman, that's where I draw the line. So I'm not with them in that regard, in that respect, for trans rights. And then maybe I might not necessarily support veganism. Veganism, body positivity. There are a few movements inside wokeism which I don't rally behind. But overall, for the most part, maybe if there was like a list, maybe 60% or 70% of them, I would rally behind them. So that's my position.
Okay. Transgenders. They come out under the minority of the minorities. Well, anyway, so I think if there's no one else who has something to say on that, we'll just hop into our last subtopic, which is what is the future of wokeism? Is the future bleak? Is the future bright? Is the future, what is the future? What do you think is the future of wokeism? I think I'll go first. Okay, so personally, I think given the trend, I think wokeism, work as a culture will continue to grow, albeit there's some tools that they deploy that would need to be addressed and changed, such as counseling and stuff. But I think, for me, I think it's a good thing. The intention is good. It's honest. Like there's no capping from anyone, and I think we just need to see a change in the way they advocate or try to communicate. But in general, I think the intention is good. So I think the future is bright for the work culture. So I don't know what you guys think. Anyone? Murioki?
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I'll say it depends on what you're fighting for and which part of the country you are. So the location and the purpose will matter. Thanks.
Okay, Maurice. Maurice.
Yes. I don't know the future. So there are two ways you can look at it. I think if every idea, no matter how noble it is, including wokeism, including fighting for right, if you take it too much, then you tend to be counterproductive. And I think that's why we're headed with this wokeism culture, where it's being weaponized for political purposes. The worst thing you can ever do is to mix a noble idea with politics or religion. And wokeism, not the wokeism that I defined, not the conscious, the cultural consciousness, to have a radical change in our way of thinking in society and culture. There's the one that has been turned into a cult by the liberal movement, especially in the Western world, that has come with a weapon called the cancel culture. That one is going to be sort of suicidal. And that is kind of the thing that you're seeing now. One of the results you're seeing is the rise in right-wing parties in the Western world. You've seen Trump win an election because of wokeism and the negative one. You've seen France, the right-wing won, though they lost the second round after the opposition merged. You've seen places like Hungary. You've seen in UK, conservative won. All these people that have this tendency of this wokeism to turn it into a cult. Number one, there are things you're not allowed to say. The things you're just supposed to have faith. Like I'm supposed to look at a man and say, oh, he identifies as a woman, must be a she. I have to feel guilty for calling a man a he. That is a culture that is headed for suicide. It will definitely not survive the test of time. They've started now putting men in women's sport. You saw the scandal yesterday at Olympics in the boxing, where a man literally hit a woman in the name of boxing. And the woman said, no, I can't fight this one anymore. And it has already caused uproar. So people are going to say, what are you doing exactly putting men in? Because, I just wake up and identify as a woman and boom. I like the way Dave Chappelle says, if I cannot wake up and identify as a white man and get a bank loan easily, then I have no right identifying at whatever you wish to. So yeah, if from that perspective, it's going to be very suicidal for the culture. But if it embraces the original ideas, which is culture consciousness, change, positive change, rethinking and reimagining the way we do things so that we become more rational and evidence-based and logical rather than emotional-based or peer influence or things being done just because, this is how we always do. If you ask most people nowadays why they do most of the things, no, this is how one of the things they'll tell you among other reason is this thing has been done like this for thousands of years. Or our forefathers used to do like this. They're not giving you an actual reason why it's okay to continue with that practice. Things like dowry, things like so many things. So if wokeism is going to take that approach of challenging norms that don't add value to a society, then it has a future. It's likely to survive. In fact, it's likely to be the norm now because young people want a change, but they are not also mindless that they are going to embrace things blindly that don't make sense. So it depends with which wokeism we're talking about. The negative one, there's no negative wokeism. I think that's I'll call it a pejorative or a hijacked. The one that wokeism has been hijacked by politics and a liberal culture. Then that one might not survive. Yeah, but generally, the dictionary definition of wokeism is a very noble idea. Yeah, and I think this actually is this movement in Kenya is part of wokeism. where people just wake up from the idea, no, we are born, you take your parents' side religion, you go to church, you marry in church, without ever questioning. There are people, most people are like that. So you become woke, you rise up to the occasion and ask, is these things really making sense? So we are product of that. And if we embrace the positive side of it, the future is very bright. Thank you.
Okay, Dorcas, ukitufungia.
Okay. Tutafunga na maombi. Now, I wanted to first respond to the question that I had asked members, which is whether we support colonial reparations. And I'm with ex-Pastor Stano on this. I think that the legacy of colonialism and the legacy of slavery is inequality. That there are certain people in society who are born into wealth. And it's not because their parents worked for it. It is because their parents had the right skin color and they inherited property which was stolen from Black people or Native people. And when those systems were dismantled, when slavery was abolished, when colonialism was abolished, none of the inequities or the privileges that stemmed from those oppressive systems were rectified. So generation after generation continues to wallow in poverty because of those systems. Something has to be done to rectify it. And this is what wokeism is attempting to do through reparations. So I am pro reparations, whether it is for colonialism, whether it is for slavery, or any other oppressive system. This is the reason why South Africa is now grappling with high crime rates. People are blaming Black people. They are saying Black people need to get it together. They are just criminal in nature. No, they are poor. Poverty is the #1 cause of crime. If you solve poverty, you solve crime. So there's a crime problem in South Africa because of the legacy of colonialism and apartheid. Only 10% of the population owned 90% of the land in South Africa. And even after independence, they did not right those wrongs. White people still control most of the parastatals in South Africa. Small wonder that Black people are forced to get into crime. That's the only way they'll make a living. That is the legacy of these oppressive systems called colonialism. So I am definitely for woke culture if it supports fixing these wrongs. Now, on the future of wokeism, I unfortunately have a negative, I see Moroki has something to say. It's okay, Moroki, you'll say it after I give my closing remark. Unfortunately, I have a negative perspective on the future of wokeism. I think it has caused a lot of backlash from conservatives and from politicians to the point that it will have to change. It cannot stand as it currently is. And the root cause of this strong backlash against wokeism is not really that it's trying to undermine privilege in society. Because, of course, there can always be people who try to resist change when they're in power, when they're benefiting from oppressive systems. Of course, there's that element. No, there's another element that is resisting the lack of empiricism in woke culture, the lack of use of evidence in coming up with a position. And that is the reason why I said I'm not woke in that respect, because I don't support some of the ideologies that are not founded on evidence. They just come up with a position and then they say you must follow that position. If you don't follow the position, we will cancel you. They will troll you. They'll make your life hell until you tag along. And some of these positions include their position on transgenderism, on trans athletes, on trans women using spaces meant for biological women. Prisons are now getting invaded in California. Prisons are now getting invaded by men who were actually, some of them are sex offenders. They raped women or they engaged in some form of sexual assault to be imprisoned. Then they're posing as women and going into women's prisons. How is this okay? This is madness. And this is woke, this is at the center of woke culture. We can't accept it because it's not founded on evidence, on reality. Yeah, or that example Bill gave of body positivity, that it's okay to be as big as you want. No, it's not. Data shows that you will be predisposed to chronic illnesses like diabetes and high blood pressure. You're going to die early. So it's contrary to evidence. But the woke people don't want you to talk about it because they're dogmatic. They are pseudo-religious in that respect. They don't encourage debate and discourse. So how to fix it for those who happen to belong to the woke camp is to become empiricists. Go where evidence leads. Stop being dogmatic. Stop stifling dissenting opinions. Engage with them. Listen to what they have to say and go with the empirical side. That is the only way to fix it. If they don't, they're going to die a natural death. Thank you. I see Morioki. Morioki, you had something to say. Please go ahead. I have the last word.
I want to ask you and Stano, because this has gone on for so long. This thing of liberation, it's been there for so long, and somehow it never happens. How about free education for the kids? Give them free education. How about that? Would that work? Free education.
Stano answered the question.
No, instead of giving people money, give them free, go to school for free in the best schools. And that's the best payment to me. Ama?
Sorry, I was far from Mike.
I'm
Repeat the
saying
question.
instead of reparation, give the children of the freedom fighters free education in the best schools. How is that?
Oh, that is also a good thing. But what about the material things that they stolen from us, Africa, and they develop their own countries?
Like what? Land, minerals, land. Minerals, land.
Minerals, yeah, minerals.
No, that's hard. How do you repay that? How do you repay that? That's hard to repay. No, that's very hard to repay. Just give them. Yeah.
They already taken them and utilize them.
So how do they pay back? Okay, how do they do it? How do they pay back?
I think by supporting our government, our country to grow at least in economy.
Or they drop the taxes, drop the debt, they drop the debts.
Yeah,
we owe them.
I think somehow like that they can decide to pay for us some debt. even if it's 10%.
Okay, my take is education. Sawa. Dorcas.
Muriuki, there is also, in line with what Stano is saying, reparation. For example, the crown of the Brits of the British Empire, or the crown that the king or the queen wears, all those stones, all those diamonds, they didn't come from Britain. There's nothing in Britain. They came from India. They came from South Africa. They came from all over the other parts of the so-called the colonies, the empire. And as with big things like diamonds, they are always documented where it came from, sometimes even with photographs, where it came from, the carat, the you know, what it weighs, like the carat and all that. They're always documented. And one day, I hope one day, we'll tear that crown apart and we take home what belongs to us. And also the museums. There's a lot of things that are in the museums in Europe that do not belong in Europe. Like, what is a Makande mask doing in Europe, in the museum, in museums, in a museum in Britain, or in a museum in the US? It is not it's not their heritage. It should go home. What the mummies that are in museums in Europe should go back to their place in Egypt. So that, yeah, so yes, reparation can also be in money, but things should go back to the rightful owners because they are documented. That is the one thing with education. And I think we learned this from the Roman Empire, documenting things. And the Brits, the Brits are the documenting stuff. So we just follow those documents and we reclaim that stuff. And I'm hoping that part of work will be, well, that's a very good work. Would be a good work. Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. Moroki, are you satisfied?
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, it's okay.
Great, great. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Even the moderator has left. Where? Thank you so much for hanging in there until the end. All those who contributed, Mwana Falsafa, Bill / Easy Stay. We had Juliana a bit, but she didn't say much. Thank you, David. Thank you, Morioki. Thank you, Maurice. Thank you, ex-Pastor Stano. And of course, the moderator, Papsi. I wish you guys a lovely night. Let's meet tomorrow. No, it's not yet. It's Sunday. Yes.
Lucas, will this be uploaded? It's be uploaded.
It's live now on YouTube.
Okay, fine.
It's live. Yes, it's live. Okay, guys, have a good night.
Enjoy your Sunday hangout. Bye.